only if he can stay there. At night, he has slept in her cloak, curled up beside her. He is down and running about and kicking at her if she tries to hold him up. Everything on the ship is calling out for his attention. Even at night, he tries to climb over her and run away in the dark. So she gets up aching, not only from her stiff position, but from lack of sleep altogether. One night she drops off and the child gets loose, but most fortunately stumbles against his father's body in his bid for escape. Henceforth, Andrew insists that he be tied down every night. He howls, of course, and Andrew shakes him and cuffs him, and then he sobs himself to sleep. Mary lies by him, softly explaining how this is necessary, so that he should not fall off the ship into the ocean. But he regards her at these times as his enemy, and if she puts a hand to stroke his face, he tries to, and his bites. She loves his dirty and his curved smells, as well as his fresh ones. As his drowsiness leaves him, his clear blue eyes, looking into hers, fill with a marvelous intelligence and an imperious will, which seemed to her to come straight from heaven. Though her religion has always taught her that self-will comes from the opposite direction. She loved her brothers too when they were sweet and wild, and had to be kept from falling into the burn. Surely her answering a question, and in that moment he has got away. When she was saying the name Isabel, that new egg bundle, and as she abandons her place in line and chases about for sight of James, it seems to her that he must have felt her disloyalty and vanished to punish her. Strangers, to sailors, she begs them, "Have you said?" Says that he will turn up. Mary should not worry herself. He will be playing with the other children for her to search. But of course they cannot. They have their own responsibilities. This is what Mary plainly sees in those moments of anguish, that the world which has turned into a horror for her is still the same ordinary world for other people, and will remain so even if James has truly vanished. If he is ship's railings, she has noticed all over the places where this could be possible, and is swallowed in the ocean. The most brutal and unthinkable of all events to her could seem to most others like a sad but not extraordinary misadventure. It would not be unthinkable to them. Or to God. For in fact, when God makes some rare and remarkably beautiful human child, is he not particularly tempted to take his creature back, as if the world did not deserve it? But she is praying to him all the time. At first, she only called on him, but as her search grows more specific and in some ways more bizarre, she is ducking under clotheslines that people have contrived for privacy. Of interrupting folk at any business, she flings up the lids of their boxes and roots in their bedclothes, not even hearing them when they curse her. Her prayers also become more complicated and audacious. She seeks for something to offer, something that could be the price of James's being restored to her. But what does she have? Nothing of her own, not health or prospects or anybody's regard. There is no piece of luck or even a hope she can offer to give up. What she has is James. And how can she offer James for James? This is what is knocking around in her head. But what about her love of James? Her extreme and perhaps idolatrous, perhaps wicked love of another creature? She will give up that. She will give it up gladly if only an hour or two after somebody has noticed the boy out from under an empty bucket, listening to the hubbub. And she retracted her vow at once. She grabbed him in her arms and held him hard against her and took deep, groaning breaths while he struggled to get free. Her understanding of God is shallow and unstable. And the truth is that except in a time of terror such as she had just experienced, she does not really care. She has always felt that God, or even the idea of him, his punishments after death as she should, and she does not even know why. There is a stubborn indifference in her mind that nobody knows about. In fact, everybody may think that she clings secretly to religion because so little else is available to her. They are quite wrong. And now she has James back. She gives no thanks, but thinks what a fool she was, and how she could not give up her love of him any more than stop her heart beating. After that, Andrew insists that James be tied not only by night, but to the post of the bunk or to their own clothesline on the deck by day. Mary wishes him to be tethered to her, but Andrew says a boy like that would kick her to pieces. Andrew has trounced him for the trick he played, but the look in James's eyes says that his tricks are not finished. That climb in Edinburgh, that sighting across the water, was a thing Andrew did not even mention to his own brothers, America being already a sore enough matter. The oldest brother, Robert, went off to the Highlands as soon as he was grown, leaving home without a farewell on an evening when his father was at Tibby Shields. He made it plain that he was doing this in order not to have to join any expedition that their father might have in mind. Then the brother James perversely set out for America on his own, saying that at least if he did that, he could save himself hearing any more about it. And finally, Will, younger than Andrew, but always the most contrary and the most bitterly set against the father, Will too had run away to join Robert. That left only Walt, who was still childish enough to be thinking of adventures. He had grown up bragging about how he was going to fight the French, so maybe now he thought he'd fight the Indians. And then there was Andrew himself, who ever since that day on the rock has felt about his father a deep, bewildered sense of responsibility, much like sorrow. But then Andrew feels a responsibility for everybody in his family. For his often ill-tempered young wife, whom he has again brought into a state of peril. For the brothers far away, and the brother at his side. For his pitiable sister and his heedless child. This is his burden. It never occurs to him to call it love. To call it love. Agnes keeps two women looking after her are cabin passengers, Edinburgh ladies, who took on the job out of charity. "You be still now," they tell her. "You have no idea what a fortunate lassie you are that we had Mr. Suter on board." They tell her that the baby was turned the wrong way inside her, and they were all afraid that Mr. Suter would have to cut her, and that might be the end of her. But he had managed to get it turned so that he could wrestle it out. Says Agnes, put her in her place with their reproaches and Edinburgh speech. They are idiots anyway. She has to tell them how you must put a little. They are idiots anyway. She has to tell them how you must put a little salt in the baby's first milk. Just place a few grains on your finger and squeeze a drop or two of milk onto it, and let the child swallow that before you put it to the breast. Without this precaution, there is a good chance that it will grow up half-witted. "Is she even a Christian?" says the one of them to the other. "I am as much as you," Agnes says. But to her own surprise and shame, she starts to weep aloud, and the baby howls along with her out of sympathy or out of hunger. And still she refuses to feed it. Mr. Suter comes in to see how she is. He asks what all the grief is about, and they tell him the trouble. "A newborn baby to get salt on its stomach. Where did she get the idea?" He says, "Get her the salt." And he stays to see her squeeze the milk on her salty finger, lay the finger to the infant's lips, and follow it with her nipple. He asks her what the reason is, and she tells him. "And does it work every time?" She tells him, a little surprised that he is as stupid as they are, though kinder, that it works without fail. "So, where you come from?" They all have their wits about them? And are all the girls strong and good-looking like you? She says that she would not know about that. Sometimes visiting young men, educated and from the town, used to hang around her and her friends, complimenting them and trying to work up a conversation, and she always thought any girl was a fool who allowed it, even if the man was handsome. Mr. Suitor is far from handsome. He is too thin, and his face is badly popped, so that at first she took him for an old fellow. But he has a kind voice, and if he is teasing her a little, there could be no harm in it. No man would have the nature left to deal with a woman after looking at them spread wide, their raw parts open to the air. Are you sore? He says, and she believes there is a shadow on his damaged cheeks, a slight blush rising. She says that she is no worse than she has to be, and he nods, picks up her wrist, and bows over it, strongly pressing her pulse. Lively as a racehorse, he says, with his hands still above her, as if he did not know where to drop them next. Then he decides to push back her hair and press his fingers to her temples, as well as behind her ears. She will recall this touch, this curious, gentle, tingling pressure, with an adult mixture of scorn and longing for many years to come. Good, he says, new touch of a fever. He watches for a moment, the child sucking. All's well with you now, he says with a sigh. You have a fine daughter, and she can say all her life that she was born at sea. Andrew arrives later and stands at the foot of the bed. He has never looked on her in such a bed as this, a regular bed even though bolted to the wall. He is red with shame in front of the ladies who have brought in the basin to wash her. She laughs in a vexed way and asks, what did he think it was? That is all it takes to knock him off his unsteady perch, puncture his pretense of being at ease. Now he stiffens up, even redder, doused with fire. It isn't just what she has said. It is the whole scene. A smell of the infant and milk and blood. Most of all the basin, the cloths, the women standing by with their proper looks that can seem to a man both admonishing and full of derision. He can't think of another word to say, so she has to tell him, with rough mercy, to get on his way. There's work to do here. Some of the girls used to say that when you finally gave in and lay down with a man, even granting he was not the man of your first choice, it gave you a helpless but calm and even sweet feeling. Agnes does not recall that she felt that with Andrew. All she felt was that he was an honest lad to run off and leave her. Walter has continued to go to the same private place to write in his book, and nobody has caught him there, except the girl, of course. But things are even now with her. One day he arrived at the place, and she was there before him, skipping with a red tasseled rope. When she saw him, she stopped, out of breath. And no sooner did she catch her breath, but she began to cough, so that it was several minutes before she sank down against the pile of canvas that concealed the spot, eyes full of bright tears from the coughing. He simply stood and watched her, alarmed at this fit, but not knowing what. He was on speaking terms with the Edinburgh women now, on account of Agnes. They take a kind interest in the mother, and Mary and young James, and think that the old father is comical. They are also amused by Andrew and Walter, who seem to them so bashful. Walter is actually not so tongue-tied as Andrew is, but this business of humans giving birth, though he is used to it with sheep, fills him with dismay or outright disgust. Agnes has lost a great part of her sullen allure because of it, as happened before when she gave birth to young James, but then, gradually, her offending powers returned. He thinks that unlikely to happen again. He has seen more of the world now, and on board this ship, he has seen more of women. The coffee girl is shaking her curly head violently. I don't want them, she says. He has seen more of the world now, and on board this ship, he has seen more of women. The coffee girl is shaking her curly head violently. I don't want them, she says, when she can gasp the words out. I have never told anybody you come here, so you mustn't tell anybody about me. Well, you are here by rights. She shakes her head again and gestures for him to wait till she can speak more easily. I mean that you saw me skipping. So what is wrong with you skipping? How do I know? She says, regaining her saucy tone. Perhaps he thinks I'm too old for it. Will you swear not to tell anyone? You swear not to tell anyone? She holds up her forefingers to make a cross. The gesture is innocent, he knows, but nevertheless he is shocked, knowing how some people might look at it. But he says that he is willing to swear. I swear too, she says. I won't tell anyone you come here. After saying this quite solemnly, she makes a face. Though I was not going to tell about you anyway. What a queer, self-important little thing she is. She speaks only of her father, so he thinks it must be she has no brothers or sisters and, like himself, no mother. That condition has probably made her both spoiled and lonely. Following this swearing, the girl, her name is Nettie, becomes a frequent visitor when Walter intends to write in his book. She always says that she does not want to disturb him, but after minutes, she will interrupt him with some question about his life or a bit of information about hers. It is true that she is motherless and an only child, and she has never even been to school. She talks most about her pets, those dead and those living at her house in Edinburgh, and a woman named Miss Anderson who used to travel with her and teach her. It seems she was glad to see the back of this woman, and surely Miss Anderson would be glad to depart after all the tricks that were played on her, the live frog in her boot, and the woolen but lifelike mouse in her bed. Also Nettie's stomping on books that were not in favor, and her pretense of being struck deaf and dumb when she got sick of reciting her spelling exercises. She has been back and forth to America 3 times. Her father is a wine merchant whose business takes him to Montreal. She wants to know all about how Walter and his people live. Her questions are, by country standards, quite impertinent, but Walter does not really mind. In his own family, he has never been in a position that allowed him to instruct or teach or tease anybody younger than himself, and in a way, it gives him pleasure. It is certainly true, though, that in his own world, nobody would ever have got away with being so pert and forward and inquisitive as this Nettie. What does Walter's family have for supper when they are at home? How do they sleep? Are there animals kept in the house? Do the sheep have names, and what are the sheepdogs' names? And can you make pets of them? Why not? What is the arrangement of the scholars in the schoolroom? What do they write on? Are the teachers cruel? What do some of his words mean that she does not understand? And do all the people where he is talk like him? Oh, I, a nuisance to him. She says that she will teach him to run. He is sitting out, and occasionally they seem to listen to a bit of what old James is telling. All Welter, certainly, who has in Walter's view. There is a figure close to this man's other side, and at one moment in the tale, this figure peeps around to look at Walter, and he sees that it is Nettie. She seems about to laugh. her father. The two of them stand there listening quietly till the tale is over. Then the man turns and speaks directly, in a familiar yet courteous way, to Walter. There's no telling what happened to the fellow's shape. I hope the fairies did not. Alarmed, in reassurance and the slightest smile, then drops her eyes and waits beside her father as a demure little dude. What you can make of this? The man asks, nodding at Walter's notebook. I am writing a journal of the voyage, Walter says stiffly. Now that is interesting. That is an interesting fact, because I too am keeping a journal of this voyage. I wonder if we find the same things worth writing of. I only write what happens, Walt says, wanting to make clear that this is a job for him and not any idle pleasure. Still, he feels that some further justification is called for. I am writing to keep track of every day so that at the end of the voyage I can send a letter home. The man's voice is smoother and his manner gentler than any address Walter is used to. He wonders if he is being made sport of in some way, or if Nettie's father is the sort of person who strikes up an acquaintance with you in the hope of getting hold of your money for some worthless investment. Not that Walter's looks or dress would mark him out as any likely prospect. So, you do not describe what you see? Only what, as you say, is happening? Walter is about to say no, and then yes, for he has just thought, if he writes that there is a rough wind, is that not describing? You do not know where you are with this kind of person. You are not writing about what we have just heard? No. It might be worth it. There are people who go around now prying into every part of Scotland and writing down whatever these old country folk have to say. They think that the old songs and stories are disappearing and that they are worth recording. I don't know about that. It isn't my business. But I would not be surprised if the people who have written it out there will find that it was worth their trouble. I mean to say, there will be money in it. Nettie speaks up unexpectedly. Oh, hush, father. The old fellow is going to start again. This is not what any daughter would say to her father in Walter's experience. But the man seems ready to laugh, looking down at her fondly. Just one more thing I have to ask, he says. What do you think of this about the fairies? I think it is all nonsense, says Walter. He has started again, says Nettie crossly. And indeed, old James's voice has been going this little while, breaking in determinedly and reproachfully on those of his audience who might have thought it was time for their own conversations. Still another time, but in the long days in the summer, out on the hills late in the day, but before it was well dark. The tall man nods, but looks as if he had something still to inquire of Walter. Nettie reaches up and claps her hand over his mouth. And I will tell you, and swear my life upon it, that Will could not tell a lie. Him that in his young days went to church to the preacher Thomas Boston, and Thomas Boston put the fear of the Lord like a knife into every man and woman till their dying day. No, never. He would not lie. So that